Derbyshire Dales District Council. I'm not expecting the fire alarm to go off, but if it does, please leave by the double doors, go down out the way you came in, and congregate on the top car park. If there's any member of the public not wanting to be recorded tonight, please
anyway, ladies and gentlemen,
let the committee clerk know, Tommy, and he won't record you. So anyway, moving swiftly on, agenda. Item 1, apologies and absence, Angela.
Thank you. Apologies received from Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Purdy, Councillor Janet Rose, and Councillor Mark Wakeman is substituting for Councillor Rose.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 2, approval of the minutes. I move. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Item 3, interest. Anybody declaring interest in tonight's business? No. So moving swiftly on. Item 5.1, first application is Speedwell's Mill, Old Coach Road, Tansley. It's application 21/0125 full. It's conversion extension of existing mill extension to create 5 number of apartments and extension of glaze linked to main mill building. So anyway, there is no late reps on this. I have got one speaker, Mr. David Ouslam, to speak in favour of the application. If you'd like to go to the speaker's table there, turn the microphone on. You've got 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds left.
Good evening. Is that working? Okay. Yeah. The proposed extension and glass link also relates to the conversion of the main mill building from offices into 6 apartments, which has previously been granted planning consent. The glass link is required to provide access to apartments 5 and 6 of the main mill. The design is in a dark grey aluminium framing and glass to allow a view of the rear wall of the main mill. Offices into 6 apartments. Proposed rear extension previously been partly by conversion of the existing offices on the ground floor, with new upper floor constructed to the rear of the existing stone wall containing 3 archways facing onto the old coach road. A rooftop extension is included but set back 3 metres from the arched wall and clad in ribbed zinc. All windows are in dark grey aluminium with vertical sliding sash to match the main mill, and the 3 archways have feature aluminium windows set back in recess and with tinted glass. The main walling materials are in reclaimed natural gritstone to match the existing. A number of design changes to the proposal have been agreed with the planner and the conservation officer and now form part of this application, and the overall design has been considered to be acceptable architectural approach and response to its context. Access to the site is from the A615 Alfreton Road and through the existing access to the offices. Access will not be needed from the old coach road. 8 parking spaces are provided in the front car park for the main mill, and a further 8 spaces are provided to the rear for the rear extension. The access and parking arrangements have both been approved by Highways Department. They recommended provision of some secure cycle parking which can be incorporated. No trees are to be removed as part of these proposals, and a bat survey has been carried out on the existing building with no evidence found of any activity by bats. In planning policy terms, these proposals have been considered acceptable and therefore assessed with a presumption in favour of residential development in this sustainable location. Certain conditions have been proposed which are considered to be reasonable for these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyway, Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. As set out by the agent for this particular application, the application follows an application in 2019 for conversion of the existing mill building to 6 apartments under permitted development legislation. This site forms part of a wider area allocated for employment use. It sits within Lumsdale Conservation Area. It's edge of a Tier 3 settlement, and in the context of permission having been granted for conversion of the existing mill building to residential use, and the proposed use of the site for residential purposes in the form of a purpose-built apartment block within the grounds of the existing mill building is considered to be acceptable in principle. Officers visited the site yesterday, and they will have had regard to the site and its context. This building will have a close relationship with the road, which is a private road. The members can see in the photograph there that you've got the original mill race, which is an important historic component of the site. The application seeks to retain that as a feature, with the apartment building set behind that water channel. The design of the apartment is contemporary, which is considered to be appropriate. It's respectful of the original mill building and the setting of the building within Lumsdale Conservation Area. We're happy that the proposal doesn't raise any amenity impacts. There are no significant concerns in relation to trees, and we're happy that it's an appropriate response to the site and its context. Happy to take questions at this stage.
Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 questions, Chris. One comment is that there's a lack of lighting. It is a very dark area there, and the other question is the pond. Will it be restored to its former glory?
Yes, this application has been amended to exclude the reinstatement of the mill pond and a further residential development within the grounds of the former mill complex. So this application doesn't propose to reinstate the mill pond.
But is it in future? Is he, will there be development of it?
It would be subject to a future
developers.
grant of planning permission. Is it specifically excluded from this application? But if having regards to the application as originally submitted, the applicant clearly had intentions to develop the wider site, which did involve the reinstatement of that feature.
It would be very good if they brought the pond back into use. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Buttle.
Thank you, Jason. Chris, you used the phrase seeks to retain the mill race when you were just describing this. It's either retaining it or it isn't. I want it to. Are we retaining it or are we seeking to retain it?
Yes, there's a condition to retain that feature, and it was pointed, I think, Councillor Buttle, you may have raised this on site, that the plan shows the termination of that feature and implied partial removal of a section of that wall. Well, that's not the intention, it's just an omission on the plan, and the condition makes it clear that as a feature should be retained in its entirety, incorporated into the development.
Thank you.
Okay, nobody else down for question. I'll move into debate. Councillor Hughes.
Chair, I'd like to move officers' recommendations on this.
Okay, anybody wanted to second that? Councillor Fitzherbert.
I'd like to second this. I think it would be great to see it fully reinstated.
Okay, anybody else wishing to speak in debate? Councillor Slack.
Yes, it's good to see this building, this Victorian building, coming back into use. It stood idle for many years, and I've often looked up at it and thought that would make a good apartment. So I'm pleased it's coming back into use, and I fully support.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak in debate? Okay, it's been moved and seconded as sent out in the officer's report. All those in favour, please show. All those against? That's been carried unanimously, so it's been passed. Thank you very much. Right, moving swiftly on. Get on, yeah. You wanted to get back for football, Councillor Donnelly? Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Well, his luck might be in. Anyway, application 5.2. This is Vital Earth, Blenheim Road, Ashbourne. It's application number 22-012044. It's an extension to an industrial building to accommodate 3 number silos, the construction of storage bays and erection of an office building stroke welfare unit. I have no speakers down in this. Who's taking this, Chris? Oh, you're taking it as well. So anyway, over to you, Chris.
Okay, the reason this application is before members this evening is it constitutes major development by virtue of the site area. The application seeks to reuse and repurpose existing buildings on site associated with Vital Earth, which was an in-vessel composting facility. That use ceased some months ago now, and a new end user has come to the site, Derbyshire Aggregates, and wants to utilise the site and existing buildings. This application specifically concerns 3 silos which are contained within the existing building, and the development involves the extension of one of the existing buildings on site to accommodate those plant. And the application also includes a welfare building, relatively modest in the context of the much larger buildings on site, and also some storage bays for loose aggregate. The application is considered to be acceptable in principle. The site sits within the Ashbourne Airfield Industrial Estate, which has various B1, B8, well, what was B1 and now would be E commercial use premises, B2 general industrial, and B8 storage and distribution uses. This is considered to be acceptable reuse of the buildings on site. The extent and amount of development doesn't result in any harm to the character and appearance of the locality, wouldn't result in any significant additional noise above existing controls that are in place, secured through conditions, and with dust suppression measures in relation to the loose aggregate stored within the compound areas that are to be formed. We're satisfied that there wouldn't be any resultant nuisance to nearby residents. Happy to take questions on this one.
Right, members, questions. Councillor Archer, sorry. Having a senior moment.
No problem, I have those all the time myself. Very quick question, just in terms of the conditions, the environmental health in 5.5 put a list of their recommended conditions. Can you just confirm whether those are included in our conditions that we're going to be putting forward in recommendation?
Yes, as part of consideration of this application, and even before this application was considered, the applicant entered into pre-application discussions with us and asked the question as to whether Derbyshire Aggregates would their operation site, whether that would constitute a material change of use of the buildings and land. And this application, this site was previously a county matter because it was a waste processing facility. So the council corresponded extensively with the county council about the lawful use of the existing sites, and it was established that we both felt that it fell within the same B2 use classification. Therefore, the use of the site, there isn't a material change of use, and the conditions that applied to the operation of the site previously as a waste disposal facility still apply to Derbyshire Aggregates. So those controls are still in place by virtue of those historic county matter applications. So the only conditions we can impose are those specific to the development that's currently applied for. So we've got relatively modest extensions and new buildings to serve that new use, and then we've got the new areas for aggregate storage, which could result in some dust, hence the additional condition relating to dust suppression measures.
Okay, anybody else want to ask a question before moving to debate? No, move into debate then. Councillor Donnelly.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I'm delighted to see that the continuity of the use of the building after Vital Earth left, and as ward member, I'm quite happy to move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Archer, you've got to second it.
Yeah, happy to second, same reasons. Good to see it being reused.
Anybody else wanting to speak in debate? Councillor Lees.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was going to second it as well, but just looking on the environmental health bit about the deliveries between 7 and 7. When it's in the thick of the industrial estate, I just wondered why 7 to 7 still applies on something like this.
Chris.
Yeah, my understanding of the historic permissions on this site was that there were specific conditions relating to transfer of waste material to site. So the condition could be specific in relation to that activity and may not prohibit
to the waste. Yeah,
maybe specific to that operation.
Okay. Anybody else wanted to speak in debate? No, it's been moved and seconded for approval as set out in the report. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's been carried unanimously. We are getting through it today. And everybody wants to go home because it's Valentine's Day. I don't think we needed that, Helen, but anyway, thank you very much for that. So anyway, this is item 5.3. This is Darlydale Hillside Methodist Church, Moor Lane, Darlydale. It's change of use of former Methodist Church to form 4 number C3 dwelling units, including alteration, extension, and alteration of vernacular access. So anyway, there is some late reps on this, which I'd like you to read. It's from a Dawn Kinley, so I'll let you read them first, and then we'll move to the speakers. Everybody happy? Yep. In which case I'll move on. I've only got one speaker, but the speaker's not here, so Tommy's got to read out what the agent was going to say. So Tommy, being as the agent, you've got 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds left.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair and members. Firstly, I'd like to offer my apologies for not being able to attend in person today. Unfortunately, this meeting clashed with leave I have planned with my family. I'd like to reiterate to the members the procedures undertaken leading up to this point in the consideration of the former Darley Hillside Chapel. Letters of response recently received by the authority, which bring the application before you, have a common thread running through them, specifically traffic movement and safety generated by the belief that 4 apartments will create more traffic than the extent approval for a single unit as previously granted at appeal. I would clarify that highway safety was not the reason the previous scheme resolved at appeal. On instruction to reconsider the site for apartments rather than a single unit, I confess to having my own concerns regarding vehicular access, which may be raised by the Highways Authority. To that end, and before any formal process was undertaken, I reviewed the vehicular access to improve matters as far as is practically possible and beyond the alterations already approved in the previous scheme. Subsequently, we engaged informally with the Highways Authority to obtain their comment/support before approaching planning officers informally to discuss the planning principles of conversion to apartments. The formal application before you now is submitted with pre-application advice from both the Planning Department and Highways Department supporting the proposals. We take the comments raised in the letters of response very seriously. In reply, we'd simply like to reiterate that the concerns raised in those letters have been given due consideration and as a result, appropriate solutions agreed. The case officer is very familiar with the site and has worked hard with me to find a meaningful solution for the building, which has now been vacant for a number of years. I would like to thank the officer for their input during the application process and hope the committee see fit to support their recommendation. Yours faithfully, Nick Marriott.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Sarah.
Right, we went on site yesterday, had a look. So basically what situation is the principle has been established for residential, for it to be converted to residential. It is a community building and it went to appeal and was tested, and the inspector felt that sufficient marketing evidence had been undertaken. So it has got a principle to be converted to 1 dwelling. This is a change to 4 apartments, 3 2-beds and 1 1-bed, 4 parking spaces to the front and side with 2 visitor spaces. We've also accepted the principle of the extension to the side as part of that allowed appeal. and only minor changes to some openings. But as you can see, the actual building is to be retained as it is, really, with this retaining the important elevations and the sort of window treatments, etc. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. It's just about parking again. I mean, I noticed yesterday that there were parking spaces, 4 parking spaces for the apartments plus 2 visitors parking spaces, and I think you'd confirm that that was sufficient parking spaces for the development. So my question really is about the 2 of the parking spaces will probably require some extending the flat area around the chapel. Is that conditioned in any way, or because I think it'll be beyond building control, because I would worry that the site slopes steeply, and it would be necessary for some engineering work to make sure that that is satisfactorily constructed to support vehicles.
Sorry, I'm just having a quick look to go through the conditions. I would think it's a highways condition. Yeah, we've also got a condition about finished land levels in condition 7, so we can control that. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Although our Derbyshire County Council always raised no objection, Darley Town Council have objected under the narrowness of the lane, amongst one thing, and location and access and the number of cars associated with the 4 dwellings. So, are they wrong, Darley Town Council, or is there a view?
As the agent said in his in his speech, that they are making improvements to the access. They have engaged with highways, and highways have no objection to the intensity of the use of the access with gaining the improvements proposed.
Thank you.
Used to be busier on a Sunday, Peter, than probably whatever it's going to be. Anyway, Councillor Allison, and then Councillor Burfoot, and then we're going to debate.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a query on one of the representations received, really, about the size of apartment 3. Is that correct? Is it smaller than the government recommended amount, and is that something that complies with our policies? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. It is below optional national space standards, but not by the amount that's indicated by the person making the representation. So apartment 3 is correct that it's only 30 metres square. For a 1-bed, 1-apartment property, the optional national space standards requirement with a flat with a shower and not a bathroom would be for 37 square metres or metre square. So that is it might just be a typo in the representations there, but it is below optional national space standards. Government guidance is clear that local planning authorities have the option to set additional technical requirements which exceed the minimum standards required by building regulations, and an optional nationally described space standard. But we don't have such a policy at Derbyshire's District Council. We don't have policies. We have a housing mix policy, but we don't have a policy that prescribes space standards as such. But it's something we can look at as part of the local plan review.
Okay, Councillor Burfoot.
Thank you.
First hope you spoke tonight. I'm very surprised with you, Councillor Burfoot.
You're disappointed.
Very.
Following on from what Councillor Allison said, I took it that the recommended space was 47, and it's actually 37, is it? In the report it says. Well, is that something that the objectors got wrong? What is the housing standard basic size?
For a 1-bed, 1-person apartment
yes.
with a shower, it's 37. So it is.
Right.
I'm thinking it's just a digit that's wrong there.
Right. Okay.
In the representations.
So I've had that question answered. But just in terms of, because what came to my mind was that these would be perfect for holiday lets and Airbnb and all the rest of it. So is there anything in our policies that we could condition? Certainly the very small, well, all of them actually, to not be holiday lets. In other words, for principal use.
Yeah, we don't have the policy basis or the evidence base, unfortunately, to restrict second home ownership in this location, or a condition, or think to impose a condition which restricts occupancy by holidaymakers. It is something that perhaps we members may wish the council to review as part of the local plan process, but there isn't the policy basis at this time to do that. So, in effect, we'd be granting permission for the use of these apartments as dwelling houses, but people could purchase them and use them as holiday lets, and we wouldn't have any control in that respect.
Okay.
Can I just?
No, you can't, Peter. She's speaking again.
I wonder whether, just going back to the size of this really small flat, did the officers ever suggest to the agent or the developer that it might be considered to be overdevelopment and that 3 might be more advisable, let's say?
No, is the answer.
Short and sweet answer to that one, Sue. Councillor Slack, have you got another one, Sue?
About highways, really.
Okay.
There are concerns about that. It isn't, we saw it yesterday, but I've seen it before, and it is narrow. But if we are getting advice from the Highways Authority that it would not, it would fail if it went to an appeal on that basis. Am I correct? Yes.
Yes, I don't think we would have a very good case based on the parking available within the site and the improvements to the access.
I would. It might be quicker. Councillor Buttle, and then I'm going to debate.
I just want to query if we can condition something to do with an energy statement, solar panels, something just to perk it up a little.
I think we can add a footnote to the decision notice if you like. That's practically about all we can do, I think.
Well, let's do that then.
Okay, I'll ask them to put a footnote on. Okay, so I've moved into debate. Councillor Hughes.
Chair, I'd like to move this officer's recommendations with 1 or 2 minor changes, and it's really to that condition 7E. I would like to say finish site levels and contour in relation to the extension and car parking, and engineering drawings to be provided from a professional engineer for the car parking, to ensure that, and that would ensure that they were done to a standard that could be defended, so to speak. And the other one I think would be to add the point that Neil came up with about measures for climate change, so solar panels, car parking, EV charging points, and so on.
Yep. Like I say, we'll have to put that as a footnote because it's not a policy at the moment. Yeah. Councillor Wakeman.
Yes, Chair, I'd like to second this.
Are you happy to second it with the amendments to the conditions that Councillor Hughes set out? I think it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Slack, you want to speak in debate?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was going to speak about EV charging points, but that's been covered. I would like to speak about primary residence. I thought neighbourhood plans covered primary residence. I know Worksworth neighbourhood plan covers primary residence, and it needs to be looked at by the district council, really. But that's part of the question, part of the debate.
Yeah, I think that's something we'll have to resolve through the local plan working group. I'm sure there's members sat around this table that remember to ask Mike Hayes to look into it. Yeah, if you're happy.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Fitzherbert.
Thank you very much. I mean, with my heritage hat on, this is not. I asked the question on site yesterday whether this is a listed building or not. It's not a listed building. and I suppose it's marginal if it was listed or not. But it's an important building, members here. I think that we looked at yesterday, and it has been empty for 20 years. You know, it does need a change of use and a redirection in its life, and I'm glad that hopefully the consensus is to pass it. Thank you very much, members.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak in debate? No? Well, it's been moved and seconded for approval with the additional wording in the conditions. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? That's been carried unanimously. We are doing well, members. Everybody must be on a promise. So anyway, moving swiftly on, item 5.4. I think the penny's dropped. So anyway, it's application 5.4. This is use of land as a gambling site with a erection of 3 holiday lets, 1 number of amenity building and associated parking and landscaping at Horsley Horse Farm, Bradbourne. Now, we have got 2 down on the list. The first is Councillor Janet Rose, so a statement's got to be read out by Tommy. Tommy, you've got 5 minutes, but looking at what she's put, I don't think you'll need it.
Thank you, Chair. I write in support of the application as ward member. The owners have invested in a rundown Grade 2 star listed building, which prior to their ownership was in very poor state of repair. The site's remoteness is not a reason for refusal. The applicant has mitigated its remoteness by writing a travel plan and has liaised with Ashbourne Connect to provide a free return ticket every day. The application is considered and sustainable. The pigeon loft is derelict and in danger of falling into complete disrepair. The planning officer has considered that the level of harm will be less than substantial. The applicant has considered the setting and proximity of the farmhouse and has reduced the number of units from 8 to 3, of which 1 is already a structure. The business will help support the sustainability of a Grade 2 star listed property and will contribute to the wider economy. Surely we should be supporting schemes like this rather than seeing another 3 village cottages converted into holiday accommodation. I would urge my fellow members to support this application.
Okay, thank you very much, Tommy. And the next on my list is the agent, Mr. Ben Rayner. You have 5 minutes. Okay, I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds left.
Councillors, Chair, thank you for your time this evening. I wish to start by providing a brief history of the site, because you may be aware this was actually at committee in September 22. That previous application was for 8 units spread across much larger landholding, which spread across the road. The former scheme was both larger in scale and type of accommodation, and the committee chose on that occasion to refuse the application. However, before that decision, committee members offered advice prior to that decision that they should come back with potentially a smaller scheme and a revised proposal. The applicant and the project team took this on board, and as you will note, the red line has been dramatically reduced. Contentious elements, which included an underground burrow, were removed, and means of improving site sustainability were identified. On your site visit, you will have seen the pigeon loft that's currently in place on brick pillars. The elevation facing the listed building includes a balcony walkway and glazing. Some might comment that this is actually alien to the landscape. The applicant, through this new proposal, has applied to remove the existing pigeon loft and included a single accommodation unit of a similar massing and scale further away from the listed building. As set out in the landscape assessment, this will reduce the visual impact of the building across the landscape, and it is the opinion of our heritage consultant that this accommodation is less impactful than the actual existing building that's on the site. The planning officer will inform you that this site is unsustainable and it cannot be accessed by public transport. However, the applicant has completed a travel plan that will be given to all guests, and it will inform them of the Derbyshire Connect service, walking and cycling routes, and the applicant has an agreement in place with the neighbouring landowner to access a public right-of-way at the top of the field. In addition to this, the applicant's funding of the Derbyshire Connect service for any guests wishing to utilise this dial a ride will provide a 6-day-a-week sustainable transport option. The funding of the Connect service will also promote a sustainable option to the private car. Who wouldn't want to use it? Guests will be able to arrive by car and then not use it again. It will also help to provide some funding boost, hopefully, to local residents who might also wish to use this service. It's likely that guests will be walkers, and this is the perfect landscape to access public rights of way in the national park. The site is perfectly located, for a small-scale holiday accommodation that can benefit the long-term future of a heritage asset. The site is close to other camping and holiday sites, and this accommodation type will create jobs during the works, during the operation, and benefit the local economy through direct and indirect spend. The application has not received any objections from the Parish Council, the Environment Agency, Highways Authority, Wildlife, Landscape, Environmental Health, or Archaeological officers. In addition, no objections were received from the Peak District National Park or Historic England. No public objections were received to this application. The proposal has been supported, although not noted in the committee report, by the Marketing Peak District and Derbyshire team as well. Not forgetting, the ward councillor called this application in when they found out there was a chance of it being refused, and supports the proposal wholeheartedly. The site should be approved as it is supported by heritage and landscape evidence, and not raised concern for Historic England or the National Park or a number of other consultees. This will enable jobs, promote the area, and secure local services. The proposal meets the objectives of rural tourism and responds positively to comments made regarding scale by this committee. Therefore, I recommend you dismiss your officer's recommendation and approve this planning application. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you very much. Right, who's taking this one? Sarah? Okay, over to you, Sarah.
Yep, we visited the site yesterday and had a look at each area with the proposal. Obviously, as been said before, yes, it was refused in September 2021. It's a much reduced scheme from 8 to 3. So you've got 3 aspects. You've got the can't see it really. You've got the cabin that's and we had a look at where that was. We've got the pigeon loft and we've got the yurt. So there's 3 parts of accommodation. So Horsley House Farm itself is grade 2 star listed, which is, you know, quite a high level of listed building. We're identifying harm in terms of the pigeon loft, which is located within visibility of where we parked and walked up to, and it's on higher land. We're feeling that the harm identified, because it would appear visible and conspicuous within the areas around the farmhouse, and as I've said, because it's on higher land. The degree of harm is less than substantial and should be weighted against the public benefits. This assessment's within the report, and the conclusion is that there's limited public benefits and they do not outweigh this harm. In terms of the assessment on this, whether it's a sustainable location, that's obviously within the report, and that's required by the specific policy EC9. In this application, a review of links to public footpaths, distances and frequency of buses has been undertaken, and the site remains, as per the refusal reason 1 of the previous application for the 8 units, it remains a remote rural location, not served by public transport and not with direct links to public rights of way. And refusal is recommended on these 2 bases: the harm to the listed building in terms of the pigeon loft and the unsustainable location. I'll take any questions.
Okay, members, questions. Councillor Allison and then Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. It's just the comments from the consultees. It says that the Historic England are a statutory consultee on this, but it says there were no comments received. Is that they didn't make a comment on it, or they haven't replied to you on it?
Could you say again which consultee?
Historic England.
They did make comment, but their comment was no comment.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So they don't consider it to be impacting the historic nature of the building then, even though it's a grade 2 star listed.
Yep.
yeah, they chose not to comment and they deferred the judgment to the conservation officer, which, you know,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hughes.
I'm a bit surprised by the comment that it's not adjacent to any footpaths. My wife and I walked from the old Bradbourne Mill to the Red Line. We walked from the Red Line in Kniveden to the old Bradbourne Mill and back again, and we passed not 100 yards from this particular site, and I think 100 yards is pretty well adjacent to a footpath. It's difficult to get closer to a footpath than that. And that footpath leads you to a network of public rights of way across that part of Derbyshire, and would probably let you get down to the Cossington Lake and Reservoir and go off in a lot of other directions. But it also provides you with access to a pub in Kniveden, which can provide full meals.
Are you actually formulating a question out of this?
I'm
Because we're in
asking,
question.
yeah, okay. My question
It
is,
sounds like
Sarah.
debate to me.
My question is, Sarah. Why do you think it doesn't? Why do you think it isn't on a footpath, which provides access to a network of footpaths and food facilities?
I've used the word direct, meaning that there is no direct access to the footpath because you're going over private land. That's my meaning, and I'm looking at it in the round of how far you would have to walk to using a direct way to the bus services and things like that. And I'm looking at along the road. There's no footpath. It's dangerous to walk along the road, and you'd have to go over private land and trespass to link yourself to the footpath directly from the site itself.
I think the agent said that there was a possibility, or they'd agreed with the landowner access to the footpath.
That may be, but it's not within the application site. It's not something we can control.
Okay. My other question is about substantial harm and public amenity, balanced by public amenity. And if we avoid one house in a village being taken as a holiday let by by the pigeon loft, surely that is beneficial, provides more public benefit than the loss from the positioning of the pigeon loft, which is 100 yards away from the house, I think.
I think it's not appropriate to speculate, what the public benefits may be, because we can't guarantee that approving this development will ultimately result in, safeguarding a property somewhere else in the district that may or may not be used for holiday let purposes. I think if members were minded to approve this application, there's two routes basically. One is acknowledging there is harm. I think the level of harm would be less than substantial harm in national planning policy framework terms, and giving weight to the development in terms of the public benefits to be derived. So the economic benefits of tourism in this location, but you've still got to think about the sustainability of the location. The previous speaker, or the agent for this application, did talk about a travel plan. Members may be satisfied that with the travel plan there is opportunities to be able to access the site via sustainable methods. Officer's view is the site is relatively remote from the nearest settlement. I appreciate there are links to footpath networks, and that at the moment does cross over over third party land. However, those distances are quite significant. So in sustainability terms, officers don't feel that it is a sustainable location for this type of development, but members are entitled to come to a different view and conclusion on that.
Okay. Councillor Burful.
Thank you. Just for clarification, could you bring up on the screen and pinpoint where the present derelict pigeon loft is and where the replacement would go?
very difficult to pick it up on that picture.
Only
So
need to know, is it quite close to where the present one is?
It's set further back into the field. It's really quite dark on my photograph, isn't it?
Yeah.
But on site, the applicant stood where it was going to be, and it really was quite far back in terms of the existing pigeon loft, and a little bit more into the slope.
Are we saying it would be the replacement would be less prominent than what's there now?
Yes.
Thank you.
any more questions, Sue? No? Councillor Buttle, and then we'll go to debate.
Well, I was going to move that we went against officer's recommendation. I know it's not very normal for me, but I've got some reasons. Did we? So I'll just ask the question first. Have we had any discussion about planting or soft landscaping around the pigeon loft?
The previous scheme did have landscaping around each of the units, and it was felt that that wasn't kind of natural landscaping to screen it. So that has all been taken off this proposal. It could be something that could be conditioned.
Fantastic. I'll let you get on with that then. I don't really feel that our definition of sustainability is a good one. It's unsustainable to go on holiday to Ibiza for the weekend. It's not really quite so unsustainable to do a bit of glamping in the Peak District. And see, that's kind of where I'm going with this. So I think we're maybe over egging our sustainability pudding, if there is such a thing. Right.
Okay, so question. I don't think it was actually put down yet. So I'll move because I've got people already down for debate. So we'll just see where that goes. Councillor Donnelly first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Are we in debate?
Yes, we are in debate now.
I just wondered about that, really. Yes, I was on the previous visit. Was it 2021, was it?
2022.
And I beg your pardon. And I was quite surprised yesterday when we got down there. We've gone from 8 units to 3. And personally, I don't see any problems at all with the location of the units. But I think it's much improved, really, than the previous one. I think the one thing that concerns me as well is that living in Ashbourne and you talk to many people around the area, we need more accommodation, and we need more accommodation like this. So, unfortunately, I am going to go against the officer's recommendation and would propose against the officer's recommendation.
So you're going to move it for approval against officer's recommendations?
Exactly.
Can you give any reason why? Of course, you've heard what Chris has said about sustainability and the travel plan. I think you need to wrap that up and about less than harm for this replacement of the pigeon.
Well, 2 things. I think basically that if it is on point of balance, I think our proposal will be less harmful than I think the officer recommended. Equally, I think as well, if this went to appeal, I think we would be strongly to defend it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Lees, down on my list.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, I'd second what Councillor Donnelly has said and go against officer recommendation and go for approval of this. Going back to what the speakers have said quite rightfully, the Connect service is a good service that's in that locality. I know from experience of working on the community bus and Derbyshire Connect, etc., that the Connect service does run right the way through to Par, which links up on the footpath. The buses now also have cycle racks on the back of them, or they can have cycle racks on the back, so that ticks the sustainability box in my opinion. So I'm happy to second the.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak in debate? Go on then, Sue. Go on, have a crack at the whip.
I can't resist.
I know.
Well, I'm going to go along with approval against officer recommendation. I mean, you know, let's be sort of serious about this. We've got a derelict pigeon loft there. If they don't get this approval, then they'll keep that there. Because I would if I was them. But if
I don't
we
think it's fit
approve
for a
it, they'll
pigeon, is
take
it?
it down and replace it with something
I
better.
don't think it's fit for a pigeon to live in at the
So
moment.
you know, I think here we're asking our officers basically to defend something that can't really be defended in terms of practicalities about sustainability. I mean, we've got an anomaly here, as far as I understand. One of the holiday lets at the moment that was a barn conversion. Those people who are going to come to there, they'll come in a car. So what's the difference? I don't understand that. But anyway, I don't need an answer to that. I'm quite clear in my own mind that we will. This would be a good decision to approve this.
Anybody else wishing to speak in debate? I'll have Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Slack, and then we'll go to the vote.
Chair, thank you. Just to say that we need some conditions on this. And I asked Sarah yesterday if she was able to produce some conditions.
What I'll do is when I finish with debate, I'll ask Chris to put them on for you, and then we'll go to the vote.
Thank
How
you.
about that?
That's good.
Go on then, Councillor Slack. Yeah, next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with the mover and seconder. I think it's for a few camping pods there, it's not going to affect the listed building. In fact, people come into this area will see the listed building. It's a Victorian style building, and it widens their horizons. So I think it's a good thing, really. It is really. I think we've got into the frame of mind that people can't go near a listed building, and I think this is a wrong policy. It should be open to people to go and view these buildings and bring them back into the community. So yeah, I agree with it. Move it second.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Slack. Chris, would you like to come back on the sort of conditions that you might want to add to it?
Yes, just being mindful of the debates, and I am respectful of members' judgments on this particular application. I think it's important, though, that we're not seen to ride coach and horses through our policy. I think just in terms of explaining the policy is about sustainable tourism and directing tourism in locations where you can access services and facilities by a variety of different transport methods. So not just relying on the private motor vehicle. That's to access basic provisions. It's to enjoy some of the attractions that we have in the Derbyshire Dales, to go out for meals, etc. A lot of that travel will potentially be by the motor vehicle, and that's why the policy is worded in the way that it is worded. So I just wanted to explain that. And I think where we've got an asset in the countryside, where you've got a building that contributes to the landscape, then we can make exceptions to normal rules that deal with sustainability, recognising that building has value and is worthy of retention and reuse. So it's a slightly different assessment in that respect. But I think if members were minded to approve this application, I've listened to what you've said, and I think you've made valid points in relation to sustainability of locations. So I think that element of our recommendation has been largely addressed. The impact on heritage assets. So there's one of two routes. I only explained one route earlier, and that was if you acknowledge that there's less than substantial harm to the heritage asset in this case, you can give weight to the public benefits to be derived, and you may consider that tourism in itself is enough of a public benefit to warrant approval of the application. Or you may conclude there's no harm to the heritage asset, in which case you don't have to apply the public benefits test. In terms of conditions, we need statutory timeframe condition. We need, in the interest of proper planning, we need a condition that specifies the approved plans. You might want to think about the appearance of some of the structures on site and the finishes of those structures. It's very important that we have an occupancy condition that restricts the use of the holiday accommodation for holiday accommodation purposes. It may make sense. I think we certainly need the travel plan. If we think back to the Bradbourne Mill application and the conditions we imposed on that applicant, a travel plan is part of your justification for allowing the development, that you feel that would mean that development's acceptable in sustainability terms. So travel plan, we need the conditions recommended by the Highway Authority, which seek to secure improvements to the access. We need conditions recommended by Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, which deal with lighting around the site, protection of vegetation, or conditions to prevent vegetation clearance during the bird nesting season, and landscape and biodiversity enhancement and management plan. We may want to think about measures to help mitigate the effects of and adapt to climate change as well. So I think conditions to cover all those things are sensible.
So the mover and second are quite happy with having all those added. Councillor Donnelly?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy with those conditions, Chair.
Yeah. Councillor Lees?
Yeah, happy with that, Chair.
I think the only thing we need to tease out is the reason for approval. Do you, Councillor Donnelly, do you think it's less than harmful to the heritage asset, or there's no harm?
I think, repeat that again.
Approving planning permission for this new pigeon loft setback, do you think it's less harm or no harm to the Grade 2
I don't think it's going to make much difference, Chair.
Right, okay. Are you happy with that then, Chris?
It would be helpful, just in terms of...
I take it then for Councillor Donnelly means no harm.
If we're either happy there's no harm to the heritage assets, or if we feel there's less than substantial harm, we feel that the benefits of this development outweigh that harm.
Okay. Anyway, so it's been moved and seconded for approval against officers' recommendations. All those in favour, please show. To be the naughty boy, I'm going to vote against it. But it's been carried. It's been approved. So anyway, congratulations and good luck. Anyway, now all we've got to do is item 6, which is the planning appeals progress. There's only one. I don't think Chris needs to add anything to it, so I'll just move it for noted. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. It's carried unanimously, and I'll close the meeting. That's been the fastest meeting in about 3 years. Councillor will be happy about to watch